Now then. And we're back.
Finally.
After a little layoff because me and Josh were sick.
I'm still sick.
Yeah, Josh is still sick. Yeah, it's true. Josh is toughing it out. He's toughing it out for you people.
Right. Exactly.
If we stay away too far, they'll start to eat us. So we have to come back. We have to give them something.
That's the truth. Anyway, we missed you guys, so we're happy to be back here. And we have a couple, hopefully we have 2 guests from Australia joining us. Andrew Lee's on with us now. Yeah. Andrew's on with us right now. He's another 90Ker along with myself that we met in Bulgaria. He's been kind enough to join us this afternoon, or what is it? Afternoon there, right?
Yeah, just in the afternoon.
Yeah. It's nighttime here.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Duan hopefully joining us soon. He's a rankings professional who's going to run us through what WL style stuff is going to be going on this upcoming year and tell us why that style of ranking makes more sense than all the idiot ways that we do it here in the United States. And that's going to be what we talk about. So it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. How you doing
today? He's definitely the guru. No, very well, very well. We're enjoying the heat over here. It's been pretty warm, so...
Yeah,
we both. It's not hot here. I mean, it's warm enough in my bedroom's actually quite nice, so it's nice in here. But outside, it's not nice. It's like 0 for you and 30 for us. Anyway.
Yeah, no, we had the Christmas, which was 36, so that was pretty warm.
Every time we talk to people from warm countries, the first thing they say is, "So, is it cold enough for you guys over there? I mean, how's the temperature?" And it's like, you gotta rub it in,
Yes, it's always cold.
Yeah, but we don't have, spiders that can kill you crawling around and freaking kangaroos that people are boxing. And we don't have, great white sharks.
No, wait a minute. Don't you have spiders in your home, Josh, that can kill you?
Well, but they're contained.
Ah.
I mean, those are safe.
They'd hibernate during the winter, wouldn't they?
All right, we're gonna try to add Duan here.
Oh my God!
This is very exciting.
Very high tech.
Oh, it looks like it might be working, guys.
No, can't work the first time.
Don't be like that, Josh. It didn't work the first time.
Oh yeah, that's
Hello?
Hey,
we have a voice anyway, so that's something.
This is working so far. Very good. I can see you. Josh is just behind on the times.
It's coming. There we go.
Yay!
Awesome. How smart we are, man.
We did it, everybody.
We did it. Welcome.
Doesn't bode well that I'm going to be the computer expert and gave it on Skype.
Yeah, so am I, so don't worry about it.
Oh, cool.
We were making fun of you for the Linux thing, because I have heard of Linux, which is one step above Andrew, so I felt smart. Anyway, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, man.
Yeah, so we were just making fun of you a little bit, so we got that part of the show out of the way, so you came in.
Excellent.
So, anyway, the reason I wanted to have you guys on, first of all, I had a lot of fun hanging out with the Australian team in Bulgaria, and second of all, you guys, even though you're new to WAL, and I guess, relatively speaking, newer to the sport of professional arm wrestling than some countries, you guys seem to have, you're several steps ahead in many ways. And the reason I even was talking to Andrew a couple weeks ago is I was very impressed by your bracket system that I was watching on the Australian Nationals. And then you guys also have basically what sounds like the same ranking system that the WL is using this year. So just very curious to hear your thoughts and all that kind of stuff. And maybe you could run us through it a little bit as we talk, because I know people here are very confused about it.
Sure, so what do you want me to tell you about? The bracket system first, or?
You can talk about anything you want. We were talking about kangaroos a minute ago, so... totally
Yeah, so go ahead and just talk about
pretty hot, yeah.
how the ranking system goes for you guys.
Well, so the ranking system, we started that a few years ago in Australia, and it all kind of started. I came across the sport in about 2011, 2012, and one thing I found frustrating was it's just really, really hard to follow the sport. There's no kind of website you go to and look at someone's stats and get all the information. It's kind of like little bits and bobs here and there on forums, on Facebook, what people tell you. And so really the reason in Australia I kind of created this kind of ranking site wasn't really about ranking. It was more about being able to follow the sport more easily.
Okay.
I wanted to make it as easy as possible to follow the sport. And part of that is getting all the match data. And once you have all that match data, then you can do some really, really cool things with it, like having a ranking system. The ranking system really isn't, as I see it, isn't like the kind of the main thing about the site, even though it's, everyone kind of thinks it.
Sure.
The ranking is more like a value-add feature that you can do once you have that core data, which is essentially the match data. And then, but once you have the match data, it's awesome because then you've given the sport a history.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at all the stats, all the head-to-heads, everything. And to me, that's the most kind of exciting part. The ranking system very much is kind of like a bit of a grand experiment, but also kind of a work in progress. It's not like a definitive, this is it, it's never going to change.
Yeah.
It's like the ranking system we kind of set up. It was like, okay, this will probably work with arm wrestling. There's a lot of issues when you try and rank people.
Yeah.
And so it's like, right, let's just try this system out. Now that we've got the data that we can give it a go. But then when you apply it in a real world, situation, issues come up. So in Australia, over the years, a bunch of things came up that you kind of address, and that makes the system better. And then WoW kind of looked at it and were like, oh, this could work well with us. So then we're like, cool, let's adapt it to WoW. So we've applied it. It's basically the same kind of system for WoW. And now, because WoW do things a little bit differently to how we do them in Australia, certain issues are coming up that we're now starting to address. But the result will be we'll end up with a much better system for ranking arm wrestlers. It's a very difficult thing to do, and people get very emotive about these numbers that you spit out.
Yeah.
And where they fall in the hierarchy, because we've never really had anything like this in the sport before. So it's of this scale,
Yeah, well, that always inspires. I mean, we were chatting a little bit before we went live about like the current system that's used by many people here is a bunch of people that are in whatever weight class get together and like talk about, well, who's first, who's best, who's second place.
Yeah.
Oh wait, but I beat him. No, but he beat me.
Yeah.
So, so it's totally opinionated. Whereas this system, it seems similar to the one they use in chess, and also professional tennis has been brought up, where it basically takes all of the opinion out of the equation completely.
That's what I really wanted to do with the actual kind of ranking itself. Was we've always had this kind of like subjective ranking systems in arm wrestling, and they're okay, but they tend to only rank the elite people, top 10, top 5. They don't rank people like me, or like the lower end of the spectrum. And so what I wanted to do is create a system that ranked everybody. Everyone gets a rating and a ranking, regardless of if you're elite status or novice. And to me, that was, felt kind of nice. It's very, very inclusive. It's not just for the kind of the 1%.
Sure.
So so having like a mathematical system to do the rating, that's the only kind of way you can do it. You can't do it subjectively anymore. So you have to try and think of, okay, given the nature of arm wrestling, you have all these kind of isolated pockets of arm wrestlers all over the country and all over the world. How can you get some kind of meaningful system to rate ability? And so that's the goal, and it still is the goal. It hasn't been, it's not 100% achieved or anything, but it's it's always room for improvement. And the more data you get, the more better, the better the system becomes.
Yeah.
And the more data you get, the more analysis you can do to then improve the system as well. You come into it with a lot of, a few assumptions, but then when real data comes in, you're like, oh, hang on a minute, that assumption didn't quite hold up, or, So it's kind of an evolving process.
Mm-hmm.
How long did you?
I was talking to the guys.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Andy.
I was talking to the boys that now we've got the number of matches after 4 years where you get very accurate data. And we went through exactly the same steps at the start when we introduced the system. There was a lot of noses out of joint, but all of those people now, after all the matches that have actually gone in, are 100% behind the system over here. It's easier to capture the matches in Australia too, because of the nature that most of our, or all our events are run from one central body, which you guys don't probably have.
Right.
Yeah, because that's one reason why we're able to do this in Australia. You know, arm wrestling here is very new, still very small compared to North America. So we could have this system that can just set up and everyone uses it. It'd be very, very hard to get everyone, say in America, to like, right, okay, use this system. Because there's just all the different bodies and people like don't know how to do it or they don't feel comfortable. They've got their own system that they're comfortable using. So in a way, because we were quite small here when it started, we were able to kind of, right, everyone use this.
Yeah.
And as a result, whereas while at the moment, that's it's a good point about the amount of match data. It's still like in the first kind of essentially year or two of data. No individual has had a huge number of matches. I think the most number of matches someone has had maybe like 30 or 40. Yeah. That's a very, very small number, and the average is probably more like about 20.
Right.
And we're still getting roughly okay rankings out of that. It's like go to any sport, okay, 20 matches, and we'll give you a ranking. It's very, very difficult. So there's definitely you need a period of time for it to mature and get a bit better. That's not to say that you shouldn't question it at any point and say, hang on a minute, that doesn't look right. And one thing I really want to impress on people is, with the WoW ranking, we are looking at all the results, we are looking at the rankings, and when things don't look right, we are aware of it and we are working on solutions. Mm-hmm. So it's not like this is not going to change. It will change, and there's some big changes coming soon. Because so another kind of point to make is, one really, really important aspect about any kind of ranking system is that people have confidence in it.
Sure.
If people don't have confidence in it, then forget it. It's throw it away. So I'm reluctant to kind of just make knee-jerk changes every time someone goes, oh, hang on a minute, that doesn't look right, because it devalues the system. We spent this time kind of in initial rollout, done a few little tweaks here and there, and now we're kind of getting enough data in that we're like, hang on a minute, we need to make some fairly substantial changes. Yeah. But I only want to do that I want to minimize that, because if you change big changes every week, the numbers keep changing. Everyone's like, well, what the hell's going on? So like gaining people's confidence in the system is actually a really, really big priority of a ranking system.
So a couple questions coming in for you. One's from Jonathan. He's what is the rationale behind having a 10-match minimum?
So the idea is 10-match minimum. When people start out, you basically give them an estimate of what their rating is. There's rating and ranking, and the estimate for rating is based on their body weight. Typically a heavier guy will be stronger, so they start with a higher rating. But by waiting 10 matches before you get a ranking, then that means you've won some, you'd have lost some, and you'll kind of move to a very kind of ballpark region to where your ability is, where you sit amongst other people. If you got ranked initially, it'd be very, very chaotic. So it's kind of like you only get ranked once you've had a few matches, so that you kind of roughly know where someone is. Ideally, I'd set that higher. I'd set that to 20 if I could. But then if you set that to 20, the bar is pretty high, and so you don't get enough people ranked. So you have to find this balance between getting reasonable estimates, and but not setting it too high so that you get a lot of people ranked. So that's why it's set at 10 at the moment. It's essentially completely arbitrary, but 10 is just seemed like a sensible number.
Right, you gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, no, it's it.
So you've had it for a couple of years now, so your data is going up and up and up. And I think both of you guys mentioned that people have become more and more fond of it as they have seen how it's played out. So, what were the things that you guys noticed changed over those 2 years that gave people confidence in it?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think part of it is getting used to it. Initially it's like, whoa, what the hell's this?
Sure.
And what are these numbers? Some people don't care, some people really care, and a lot of people are just kind of, okay, cool. But I think a lot of it is just getting used to it. Yeah. And also when you do see like the top guys, all kind of ranked pretty well to where they should be. That again builds more confidence in the system. So more confidence, people get more happy with it. More happy, people get more confident. And as the time goes by, the results do get more accurate. Mm-hmm. So I think it just needed that time, which is what WoW needs right now. And in a couple of years' time, it will just be pretty well established, pretty well accepted, and it'll just be like, yeah, that's a ranking system. There's a pretty clear path to, if you want to establish yourself. That's another good thing I like about it is the numbers do not lie.
Right.
And I think in the past, a lot of arm wrestlers, I don't know if anyone, but they kind of maybe lived off their reputation a bit. You have some good results. You kind of you think you're hot shit and all that,
sure,
but then maybe you haven't been so good for the past few years, and these results highlight that. So I think that's a very good thing. So it's just another aspect to it. It's the numbers do not lie, kind of.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that the feelings from the WAL side right now is probably magnified because of the size of it. So the people who are excited about it are super excited. The people who hate it really hate it. So probably what we're seeing, right?
It.
Yeah.
I think passions are running high because but I really need to emphasize that this is version 1 for WoW, and there's some changes going to be coming, and it will get better.
Sure.
It's good to hear.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the list right now. I happen to be on the Australian arm wrestling page. I don't see your name on here, Andrew. So what's the problem, man? I see first, second,
man. I'm pulling masters like you.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Masters.
Yeah.
Is there
Andrew,
there's no master class. There's about 4 masters.
Andrew, have you not competed in a year?
I've competed.
I'm
just not in the top 3.
Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah.
I'm not in the top 3. You're in trouble next week at training.
What are you doing, Josh?
Yeah. Thanks, mate.
Look, I didn't ask the question. The first question anybody asked was, "Do you guys like Vegemite?" See, I didn't put that up there.
He didn't just put that out to throw right now.
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually English, so I prefer Marmite, but...
Marmite, yeah, I've had that. That's not bad. In New England, we have this stuff called marshmallow fluff.
It's so good.
It is so good, but nobody ever... When I lived in Japan, I brought it with me. All my roommates stole it. My roommates from Australia. I had to have a secret stash and hide it under my pillow because they kept taking it.
We do exactly the same. When John, Devon, and Matt came over, you feed them Vegemite, and they just like, "What? You guys eat this?" It's a very acquired taste.
It's not bad. I tried it. it's interesting to say the least. But all right. Where was I? I had an actual question and I got lost. Oh yeah. So one of the guys who's been posting about it all the time here is Jamie Sheldon, because he did pretty well at the last major WAL event, but he's watching the rankings every single day. He's obviously not going to WAL tournament every week, but his number keeps going down. He went from 16 to 19 to 23, and it's something that people are somewhat irritated about, but I don't think they understand that you get basically rewarded for competing. The more you compete, the better, especially if you're winning.
The more you win if you're competing. If you continue losing if you're competing, you go down. But
so the reason I bring him up
Yeah.
Is that he brought up a point, like from the way that the WL finals are run, where you have a mini super match at the end of the tournament. You could actually end up with, say, for example, if you're the second place competitor at the end of the day, you end up having more losses than the everybody else in the tournament who you place in front of. So is that something that you guys are going to find a way to deal with in terms of the?
Absolutely. So I mean, so at the moment, so just quickly with the rating equation, there's a parameter in the formula that determines the maximum number of points you can gain or lose. Mm-hmm. And initially it's set to 30 because for the first 20 matches, so that people quickly get to their ballpark ability. After that, it's set to 15. So that like mini super match, you can lose a lot more points. But then over here in Australia, we have we've done a lot of super matches, and we realised that we can't have that value set to 15 for a super match. Like you said, it lower. We set it to 10 because you still want the information from the super match, like someone won 3-2 or 3-1 or 3-2, whatever. But that value was set too high, And I suspect what we may end up doing with those mini super matches is actually changing what's called the K value to a lower level, so that you still, if it's like 2-1, that's the information you want to retain in the rating calculation. 2-0, 2-1.
Yeah.
That's you want to, carry that through into the calculation of the rating. But you're right, the points exchange could be too high, so that's something we're definitely aware of, and something probably will end up having to address later on.
Yeah, so basically the wins and the losses mean something, but they mean a less percentage.
Exactly.
Good. I mean, I think it's cool. I mean, I'm excited that WL is doing stuff like this, because I do feel like, systems like this, that are used, and I keep bringing up chess because I watch it and I like, following the numbers, and it's a system I'm familiar with, and I love the fact that it's coming, because I do feel like it's much closer to being an accurate depiction of where, arm wrestlers should fall with one another, instead of just basically guessing, which is what we do now. So if people are interested in doing this, because a couple of people have reached out to me prior to the show coming on about being excited that this was coming on, because they're trying to figure out how to do rankings, what would you suggest they do if they want to try to replicate this system?
Oh, I mean, you could go to the website, and there's a link, how it works, and it's all explained there in terms of the actual specifics and the numbers. And I'd encourage anyone just to kind of do it. I mean, this is, I really feel this is something that arm wrestling needs. And it's great that we're having this conversation, that we have a system set up, that we can go, hang on a minute, how can we adjust this to make it better?
Sure.
Like I said, we've never had this before. So even though it's far from perfect, and no ranking system is ever perfect, you're always going to get some issues. You just want to get the less perfect one. That we're even having this conversation, I think, is very exciting. And we can only have this conversation because now, WoW is starting to record all the data. And so you can do these things. You can experiment. If someone comes up with a better ranking system than I've got, let's use that. It's like I've got no kind of. I don't own this at all. This is just kind of an idea that I'm trying to get working. But if someone can do it better, let's use that. Because once you've got the data, then you can do that.
Yeah, I just like the fact that something's being tried. Like a lot of people we talk all day about doing things. This would be cool if we could try this, and then it doesn't really happen. None of it works itself out until you do it. It's like when Josh was doing his single loop strap instead of the traditional strap. He just said, "Screw it, we're just going to put it in a tournament. That's the way that we're going to do this. We're going to see if it works." And you could find out it didn't work at all, or you could find out it works perfect. Either way, you got to do it. You have to.
Exactly.
So I think that's great.
Exactly. Got to put that in a real world situation. See what works, see what doesn't, learn from that, iterate, and that's what we're doing with this. So
I happen to know that some people at WL are very, very interested in the single loop.
Oh my goodness!
Because of how fast it goes on, so that if they want to do live events, they can put that strap on in 2 seconds versus the minute it takes to put on a regular strap. So we'll see what happens, but I think it'd be pretty cool if they started using it.
Yeah, all I can say about the single loop strap is that I had no experience with it whatsoever. I showed up to his tournament, I used it, and I was fine with it. That's all I can say.
So
I think that's great because
Sorry, I got another question come in. John Cervantes is asking about why there are still inactive pullers ranked higher than some active pullers on the system now.
So the currently it's been set to 8 months. If you've been inactive for more than 8 months, you retain your rating, but you drop your ranking. So in Australia, we had that set to a year, but we realized with WoW it needed to be changed, to be less than a year. So it's currently set to 8 months, as I think. So as soon as 8 months rolls by, that inactive puller will disappear from the ranking.
Gotcha.
Until they pull again.
Yeah. Someone said this would be a good way to start a fantasy arm wrestling league, man. Maybe that'll help the sport take
There we
off.
go.
Andrew, Rory wants to know if you're coming down from your pre-workout.
Rory? Yes. Rory knows me pretty well. I'm a bit introverted, so I might have had a Red Bull before I came on.
So what do you think about this ranking, Andrew?
No, the ranking works. I think it's a model that we've tested for a number of years, so we're not recreating the wheel. So I was over in the States for the WAL final, and I met the guys from WAL to try and get it into Australia, because the professional league and stuff like that, that's the next step for us.
Sure.
We've made it to Worlds, And it just made sense that the model that we've tried and tested can get adapted. Because Duan might be pretty humble about this, but there's a hell of a lot of hours that have gone into the background of this. So you've got a model that's tried and tested, and I think for the pullers, it gives them a buy-in. Like Duan said, not everyone's the elite. You've got a biography, basically, of all your matches and how you've performed. So other guys can have a look at it. You can also have a look and say, over the past 80 matches, I can't remember this. And you go back and you have a look through the history, and you can we're talking about linking that in with videos and various other things. So it's a definite resource that I think helps promote it out into the general public, because it's a very insular sport. We all know each other so well, but if you're from the outside trying to follow this sport at all, it's virtually impossible. You just get glimpses and little tidbits. This is sort of a central resource where you can go to, especially for Australia. It's a bit different, obviously, over in the States with the way you guys pull and different promotions. But over here in Australia, everything gets put in there. So all the information, all the super matches that we have, even our Christmas super matches we have between guys, they're all in there. So you can see all the information, and you can build the pictures and you can tell a story. Very hard to do that. Like when we ran nationals, we had the live feed run in beside the brackets. You could follow it all live and run with it. That kind of information we need. We watched from afar some of the WAL regionals last year, and you've got bits and pieces that you see on the camera, but you miss so much.
Yeah.
With Duan's brackets and the live feed, the matches that you aren't seeing, you're still seeing the results, and you can still follow and say, this is why you've made the semis. Who did you beat? You can go and have a look. So I think the system is tried and tested. Once the confidence builds up in it, you can just keep building from there.
Yeah.
So one thing that was interesting, kind of when I set it up, was originally I thought it would just kind of passively follow the sport, but it actually kind of actively directed how the sport went as well in Australia. Really kind of affected how people would compete and things like that. So it wasn't just kind of like this passive follower. It really kind of inspired people to compete more, compete in different ways, and that was an interesting thing that I didn't think would happen. I think that's happening a bit with WoW at the moment. It's inspiring people to kind of compete because they get a WoW ranking. That's pretty awesome. And they get a rating and they can see their history. And one thing I like about just having something like this is it gives each competitor context. If you go to the current WoW site and you see the list of competitors, like we know who they are. We know who the good ones are and everything. But like just some random person, we're like, well, who the hell is this? Why is it important that this guy is against this guy? Because you don't, because you don't have access to their match, their history, their match data, and so having those stats just gives each competitor context, which then makes the matches more meaningful. And again, it just comes back to trying to present that data in a way to make the sport easier to follow and pleasant to follow too. Like I think most guys, we're just kind of stat junkies. I just love following the numbers of certain sports, And similarly with arm wrestling, now I can do that. I kind of basically made this website for myself because that's how I want to follow the sport. And it's kind of, but it's nice for other people. They will also enjoy following the sport in that way. So
I think it'll be exciting when you have, I think it's already starting a little tiny bit, but you have average people out there that say, that guy can't beat that guy because he hooks and he top rolls. So, that kind of thing. I think that's interesting. Yeah.
And also, it really illustrates what are the next series of super matches you should be doing, because you can already see the historical matchups and how they've gone and who should be going up against each other, that sort of thing. I'm exploring a couple of I'm looking at your page right now, Andrew. It's really awesome, actually, because you can see all the matches you've had and who you beat and who you lost again, various years you've been doing it and your low and high rankings and stuff like that. It's cool. So, do you get paid to do all this? Is this something you do totally because you love it? Because it seems like there's a hell of a lot of work in this.
This is arm wrestling. We don't get paid.
I was just going to say,
does anyone get paid?
I just don't know how you do it over there. I was a little curious about that.
So in Australia, when I set this up, it's purely just a hobby. I do web and database development for work, and so I applied that skill set to arm wrestling. So it's kind of more like a hobby, to set up in Australia, just to kind of can it work kind of thing. But a huge amount of effort's gone into it, and oh god, this huge database behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
But then I have actually paid me some money to implement their version of it. So there's not really any money in this. It's purely for the love of the sport,
A lot of work, I can tell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
he doesn't want to brag, but he is the highest paid arm wrestler in Australia.
Oh, I do like that. That's good.
Oh, you are. Let's face it.
And I've never won a competition.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. He's doing something right. He's doing something right.
There's a lot of guys from Australia chiming in on the Facebook page right now about Jesse Johnson, Ryan Bowen, Royce there, obviously. And they're all talking about that they love the ranking system and, they travel because of it, because they want to compete against guys that are above them, and that they feel like it's very fair and easy to understand. That's what we need here, obviously.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Andrew.
I think Blue is a perfect example with the ranking system. It's really given him a pathway. He was one of the guys that's very serious about his ranking. He set some goals, and his pathway was dictated by the ranking system. He had some targets of some pretty big guys, a lot heavier, and he planned his super matches and his tournaments and everything like that to gain ranking and points. He's been extremely successful doing that. So it gives guys a really clear path. Otherwise, it's all arbitrary again.
Mm-hmm.
Go back to Blue as well. I mean, if you look at, I think it's 2014, he had an awesome year in terms of improvement. If you look at his rating chart. So I think initially, he was very ambitious, and he was, getting very strong, but he kept on trying to challenge higher and higher people and wasn't getting many wins as a consequence. And so his ranking wasn't really where it should be.
Right.
Then I think 2014 was his breakout year. He knuckled down, won a bunch of tournaments, won a bunch of matches, and you can see the gradient. He just went right up.
Yeah.
And then he's and that's the thing, he's like, that's what I was talking about in terms of, I thought he was going to be passively follow the sport, but then it actually influenced individuals to go, right, this is how I need to get better.
Yeah.
Or just improve my ranking and show my, my real worth.
Mm.
We run a lot of super matches too. So at the Arnold Classic every year, we run sort of 30 or 40 matches. When you've got a ranking, it makes it easy for guys at similar kind of levels. And it doesn't have to be the same weight to have super matches. And the result's going to be pretty close because the rankings are accurate. And that's a huge thing for a lot of guys don't get any time in the sun. So when you've got a system that allows you to put two equal guys together in a platform at a fitness expo, they get their time in the sun, have a super match, get the crowd around them, and it's an awesome match. Some of the best matches are guys that are middle ranked, nowhere near the top, but they're so close and their matches are so passionate. That's what arm wrestling's about for a lot of guys. It's not only the elite guys.
Yeah. There's a little bit of shit talking going on right now between the 80 kilogram guys.
Is there a fight on our Facebook page?
Yeah. I noticed that when I was watching the Nationals that this kid Grant looks pretty amazing.
Yeah, pound for pound, he is phenomenal.
Yeah, I just listening to, I remember Ryan, and I don't remember who the other person was who was doing commentary.
Jordan.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
They both spoke very highly of him. He looked pretty dominant as well. So.
Pound for pound, he's incredibly strong. Some of his lifts are just unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, and I think with this ranking system, anything that brings this fire back for people to chase each other down, I'm a big fan of. Because I've kind of felt over the last few years, at least in North America, that it's kind of gone down. If there's not a camera on you, if there's not some kind of big deal going on with that, people don't really want to chase each other anymore. And the classes kind of started coming down. It was nice when we used to have 15, 16 people in a class. And 10 of us thought we could win. And 10 of us thought we could win. That was the best. And I think a ranking system like that where you can say, okay, I'm 21st, 1 through 20, I'm going to whip your ass. I think that's the best.
Yeah.
I love that.
Absolutely. And so I think as well, people need to realize there's ranking and there's rating. So someone might not realize that they might think, I'm ranked 20th, but then look at the rating points. They might only need to get 10 points, and they'll increase by 5 place ranking slots. Yeah. So there's that kind of context as well. So you're right. You can look at the ratings and go, if I only get 20 more points, I'm going to go up a few places. So if I compete in the super match or compete in this tournament, get a few wins, I'm going to jump over these guys. And so that's another motivation for this kind of website, is to try and inspire that kind of competition. and put extra fuel into the competition.
Yeah, I love that.
I think one of the big points about the ranking is arm wrestling. We need guys to actually participate. If you go to a tournament, we've got a fairly good idea who's going to place the top 3. You might not know the exact order, but you want a class of 12 to 16 guys.
Yeah.
If they're actually competing for something at points, you get that participation. If you go to every tournament and you're out in 1 or 2 matches, you only have 1 or 2 wins, you haven't got that. What's the return? The return now is I've jumped 3 places. I've moved up. If you don't have that, guys keep coming to tournaments, and between the guys that got 4 or 5 years experience and someone that's got 1 year experience, we only have one class. There's no novice, there's no masters, there's no nothing over here. It gives guys actually something they can participate in and see, hey, we're actually moving forward. Because competing against guys that are 5 years in when you're 6 months, a year in, sometimes it's not the most fun
deal. It's a rough deal.
And we've all been there at the start. You go to a tournament and bang, it's over.
Yeah.
At least with this, you have a win and you're like, okay, I've moved up a couple of places in the 80s. There might be 30 or 40 guys in the 80s, and you've seen your place move up 3 or 4 places. You got momentum. You got something to train for, and then you work harder. Whereas if you go out in straight sets and don't see any results, what kind of fire do you have to motivate, come to training, put in the hard work?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's phenomenal. I like anything that gets people out the door and saying, I'm going to win. I'm going to win it because that's what I want to do. I want my name on this list. I want whatever it is, whether I want a title or whatever. And it, like for the last few years, it seems like it's been dying down. I think that's something that can really, really fire people back up.
I agree.
Like
particularly the fact that people who are active and are winning are going to move up, and if someone who's like trying to rest on their laurels, as they say, is going to end up getting passed by people who are working harder. I love that. So, all right. So let's talk about who's going to, or who you guys hope is going to WAL from Australia this year. So obviously Grant's going, and Ryan just told me that he's going in the 195 class, which is amazing. I mean, that's a hell of a class to be in, I'll tell you.
Oh, I thought he was going to go for the 165 class.
I don't know. That's what's said on here is 195, so I don't know.
Oh, maybe the weight loss isn't going so well.
If you can make 165, make it, because a lot of the guys in the 165s in WAL walk around at 195, you know what I mean? So, but so I assume he's going to go. What about Danny Tesh? Is he going, or are either of you guys going, or hopefully?
I'd love to go, but I know I've got a newborn baby, and I'm not going to be able to get away. But no, I'd love to come and compete in amateurs in Vegas. That'd have been awesome. Maybe next year.
Yeah, we've negotiated a pretty good deal where the amateurs in Australia can come and pull at the WAL. So we're going to take our top 2 guys from all the classes and the girls, and then hopefully we get quite a lot of the amateurs. That's guys that haven't won a state or national based comp. So hopefully we get a pretty solid team over there. So all the major guys are aiming for it. So we also have the New Zealand guys and the Malaysian guys. So we'll be having our regional finals in March at the Arnolds. So we normally have a tournament at the Arnold Classic. That now becomes the WAL regional finals. So the top 2 places there. So the guys that you saw at nationals, plus there's some guys that didn't turn up to nationals that are just going 100% for the WAL. Jamie Carl, for instance, he's a 3-time national champion. He's pushing hard for WAL, and a few of the heavyweight guys just saved themselves. Australia's pretty big like you guys, so the travel costs and everything like that.
Sure.
Get into Vegas and coming over to Australia to Melbourne to pull. So a lot of guys are just focused 100% on the WAL. But I'll be there because I've done all the work in between, and I'll be going and running all the qualifiers and stuff. Yeah, you're not going to hold me back. So we'll have a few guys from our club.
Excellent. It's good,
but,
man.
I know Blue's pushing pretty hard. He's already made a few statements that the hammer's his in the 165. So pretty big call.
That is a big call.
Yeah, definitely.
And he's listening right now. So, I mean, Paul Talbot and Katowski those are tough outs for anybody. And never mind Cobra Rhodes and Alan Fisher and Luke Kint. It's just like murderer's row in that class. Oh,
I don't think there's any easy classes. And what we've said to our guys at the club, if you've got to cut weight, cut weight.
Yeah.
Like we've got Brett Coots, who he pulled and came in number 7 at Worlds a couple of years ago, and he's sitting around 105. Got a cut. He's talking about putting on weight. Got a cut. They're just the guys are too big in that heavyweight class. Just their frames and size. He's probably a bit like Chris Chandler, a really muscled, sort of smaller guy.
Okay.
A frame that small, you just got to cut weight.
Yeah, that's a rough for a heavyweight class. That's tough with arm length, hand size. List goes on. Yeah, that's rough. If you can come at 225, it's a little better anyway.
Absolutely.
So I think that we went to Worlds with a big team last year, and we came obviously with Josh this year. That we'll find that the big thing that came to us out of Worlds is we're not out of place. We might be only in the sport 5 years, but we feel comfortable in the play. We might not be elite, but we're comfortable that we're on the right track. Guys weren't getting flashed. Guys weren't getting flashed at Worlds. We don't have maybe the expertise and the background and the pedigree, but we've got the heart and soul. So that grind, you'll find a lot of the guys coming through, and we keep on trying to learn as much as we can whenever we, leave the shores or bring people over. It's a hard gig to catch up.
Yeah, it's very difficult to catch up in a game that already, when you have a great informational base and everything and good clubs and all that stuff, it still takes a long time. So, yeah, definitely. But, yeah, if you guys think you're on the right track, I mean, that's where it's at. Just keep hitting it.
Yeah, there's a great core of people, but I think the same problems exist throughout the world. We have the same problems. How do you get guys to actually participate in the sport? Mm-hmm. Our retention rate would be about 10-15%. We get a lot of inquiries, a lot of guys through once or twice. We do things a lot better than when we first started. You came to an arm wrestling session 4 years ago, like when Duan and I started. It was a 3-hour war. You just have matches. Your arms would be falling off. Yeah. The experienced guys would flash you, put you in straps, wouldn't tell you any of the tricks. You go easy on the guys, but it's that ego thing. You come to a session and everyone pins you.
Yeah.
You say you've never been beaten, everyone pins you. How do you get those guys back and into the sport? We've got a really good core of guys, and we add a few guys a year. But if we're going to take the sport to the next level, how do we get them into the clubs? That's
we need to start having start having like arm wrestling dojos. That's what we need, and we need to have people who have good pedigrees in the sport teaching classes to kids, and that's what you need. Because if you're a 12-year-old kid or a 10-year-old or an 8-year-old and you've been arm wrestling once you're 18 years old for 10 years, that ego stuff goes out the window. Because it's like this sport that, we had that in gym class, or we had that, some of my friends did that when they were kids. It's just like martial arts or just like anything. That's really what needs to happen. It's just where's the money going to come to start that stuff is the question.
It is. When you go to Worlds and you have a look at maybe the Turkish team or the Swedish team. So many young kids actually pulling, and you look at that's a model. How do we link on and get that model up and running? And that's the hardest part for us anyway.
Yeah, it would almost help if there was a belt system in arm wrestling. So you could have all these white belts come through.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's what the ranking system's for.
Yeah, sure. And
the last thing we need is people wearing freaking different colored bandanas.
That's just cool, and you don't like cool things, Josh.
That's true. Thank you. Will you give me a handful of those coffee?
Josh doesn't feel good.
What I was saying is, or I was about to say it, not just saying. What I was amazed by the quality of the junior pullers over there, and it really made me feel like we just suck here because we basically have none. I am on the radio. Okay, I'll open that. Thank you.
It's the strongest kid in the world right there.
Get out of here, kid.
Can't do it.
Okay, get out of here, man. So, and shut the door. So this is what happens when they go from newborn to 9.5.
Yeah.
It's the strongest 9.5-year-old on the planet, though.
He is a strong kid, let me tell you. But so yeah, because not only were they were technically amazing because they were obviously they tended to be smaller guys, but they were, because of that fact that I think that they actually had developed a better technique in different angles than most adults do. And I was just so impressed by them, and it just made me feel like in this country and also in Canada, actually all of North America. I don't know, you guys probably are dealing with the same thing. It's like we have basically zero infrastructure for for youth arm wrestlers, and we're missing out as a result because people are coming in to Turkey with 10 or 15 years of experience before they enter their first senior class. And for us, we've been arm wrestling 3 years before we enter it. So I mean, it's a massive differential between us and them.
Yeah, and I mean, you see all these, the North American pullers who started when they were children. Like Ethan Fritchie, Cobra Rhodes, Travis Bagent, John Brzenk, all these guys who are, they end up being these elite, unbelievable athletes who developed instincts based off of the sport as well as children. And then you see what they've done.
It's just like tendon strength, ligament strength. That takes years to fully develop, and I feel like we're still developing, like here in Australia, just from 3 or 4 years ago, we're still working on that aspects of the physicality of the sport. And if you start as a kid, you're building all that tendon strength that it'd be devastating when you get to adulthood.
Yeah, you're taking your body and telling your body to start building all that stuff during puberty.
Yeah,
crazy.
Only like
right?
35, 40. Yeah,
right. So. Yeah, instead of having to play catch up like we have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. And frankly, I don't think you can catch up for all the reasons you just stated. I mean, tendons improve so slowly. I mean, the question of whether you can actually strengthen them is another matter altogether because they aren't muscles. They don't contract. We always talk about making them stronger, but I think we really mean getting them thicker.
Yeah, damaging them over and over again.
More often.
Exactly, by damaging them. But, those are some loud ice cubes, by the way. I know everybody's thinking it, so I decided I was going to tell you that your ice cubes
Thanks for bringing it up, Josh. Someone had to say it.
Everybody's shaking their head. I was just waiting for someone to say, what is in those ice cubes, man? They're like a noisemaker. But, anyway, so whatever. I mean, kangaroos, spiders, ranking systems, we covered everything. This is awesome. Let me see.
Covering the whole gamut.
Yeah,
I could quickly mention the bracket system we use here.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about that. So the website that I created, it also, what you see is just the tip of the iceberg. Behind the scenes, there's a whole content management system used to run tournaments.
Okay.
And part of that is basically trying to make it as easy as possible to enter the data. So by making it, so basically if you use our system, it actually is easier to run tournaments because, previous competitors are already in the system. You don't have to fill in their details again. It sets up all the match order for double elimination tournaments. You can even set out all the seeding. You just say order by rating, and it orders all the seeds by their rating. So there's no kind of like, let's put that guy there, that guy there. You just press a button. There's no human interaction with it. It's just purely that's what the computer says. Deal with it. That's a draw. And so the cool thing about here in Australia with using it, all that data gets instantly put in the database as you run the tournament.
That's awesome.
You actually need the one caveat: you need to have an internet connection when you're running tournaments. Sometimes when that breaks, it kind of screws you. But if that's working okay, as you run the tournament, all the match data is going in. You get a live feed as a consequence because instant results. And then at the end of it, you just press submit tournament, done, and all that match data. Ratings would get recalculated, everything submitted. And so, you've got a system where it's easier to run tournaments. You retain all the information that happened in that tournament. And then, so that's what we've really been, working on here.
That's great.
I mean, I love everything you just said. One of the things that it drives me nuts how archaic much of the stuff that we do in the sport still is. With people get 65, paper brackets that they're shuffling through. And then they gotta, if they want to put the results up, they gotta type all that stuff in manually, But doing a system like you have, which takes all the arguing and coin flipping out. Well, I want to be this side of the table, yada yada. You just assigned. The pictures are up there, and then the fact that it instantly downloads all the data into the ranking systems. That's how it should be done.
Yeah,
that's perfect.
Because when I set up the site, I had this pipe dream that other countries would want to use it as well and adopt the system.
We do.
Well, I mean, you do. People do and they don't, because it requires like a little bit of effort in terms of actually kind of using it. And people get paper works. Why do anything else? There's this big inertia to kind of like change and using a different kind of technology to do something. So the only reason it really works in Australia is because in part I'm here, so I kind of made sure that we're using it to begin with, and now other people. Basically, all the state reps they know how to use the system. So I actually do very, very little now if there's a tournament in WA in Perth, the state rep there will just do it there. In Queensland, Blue Bowen uses it there, and it's great. It kind of runs itself almost. And that's what I would have had this pipe dream that maybe other countries would adopt it, and then we could finally kind of see ratings for like USA and Eastern Europe, and it's like another part of the equation in terms of who's better than who. It's another part of the conversation.
Yeah.
Like, that rating's such and such, and yeah. So, but again, it's yeah. I think Devlin Wright tried to kind of get it adopted in Canada, but again, it's just there's a very large amount of inertia to overcome to get people to kind of consistently use it. You need some dedicated like data entry people to like go, no, we've got to do this.
Yeah,
there's not many of those people around.
There's two things you need. One is what you just said, and the other thing is for people to realize that for the sport to grow, they have to unify certain things.
Yeah.
It's one thing to maintain your own federations, because you need to make money or whatever, but that doesn't mean that you can't have all that data being collected into a central database like you have, or a central ranking system, or it doesn't mean you can't all use uniform weight classes. You can still do all that stuff individually and participate in a national ranking system, and that's what we have to get through to people.
You're absolutely right. It's like, you're right. It's irrelevant what the federation, country, and anything is. It's like who went up against who. That's all that really matters.
Right.
Who beat who.
Yeah.
That's the central part. And
all right, I got some questions in for you, man. Let's see. We got this one's from Ryan. I missed a whole bunch, and I'll try to get them all in, fellas. But this one that just popped up. Okay, so when Oceania starts in the WAL, are we going to start fresh with the ratings? Says Ryan.
Yes. Initially, we're going to keep the Australia ratings separate from the WoW ratings. Later on, that may attempt some kind of merging, but for right now, WoW is completely separate from Australia.
Okay.
The rating system we have in Australia.
Apart from the WAL Oceania, those results.
Sorry. Apart from the WA, yeah. Yep. Any WoW events are separate from Australian Federation events.
Okay. Here's a question about who your favorite American pullers and who your favorite Australian pullers are, both of you guys.
Oh, Andrew, you go for that one.
Australian pullers would be Jesse Johnson, the arm breaker. We got into sport about the same time. Oh, no, I got into sport probably 2 or 3 years after Jesse. And he'd already broken 2 arms, and it probably took me 2 years to beat him, but he's the most intense guy on the table that there is in Australia. He's in a bit of a layoff at the moment, so we're trying to get the cowboy back into pulling. And then it's just all the local guys like Jamie Carl and Phil Rasmussen. Phil's the head of the AAF, and it took me 2 years to beat him. When I first walked into his garage, I thought it'd be 3 to 6 weeks. as you do when you're naively.
That's the best.
Well, that's what you do with that gym background. You walk in, I'm stronger than him. He's beaten me. There's a few tricks. I'll pick them up.
Oh, yeah.
6 months, you realise that it might not be that easy.
Oh, it's just
after a year, you're still hunting him.
The magic trick of how do I do this?
Yeah. And like Duan's part of my club, and Andrew Manfrey is another guy in my club, and Andrew's been chasing him for about 4 years and hasn't got a win on Phil. One of those guys, when you first start, you have the targets and they tend to last the longest. I think Phil's got 3 or 4 national titles, and there's not many guys that have beaten him left. He's a superstar. And we've probably moved more. We had Devon and Matt Mask out. They're probably 2 of my favourites because I got to know them. And John Brzezinski was the first guy that came out. And, obviously he sort of sits above everyone else in terms of arm wrestling. We probably found that he was a bit more guarded in what he said, and Devon and Matt were a bit more open, but John's just got a huge aura about him. So they'd be my ones. Julian?
Yeah, there's too many to mention. I mean, it's just, yeah. Like in Australia, it's really nice because it's, again, we are so small. I guess it's probably the same in America, it feels like just a big family.
Yeah.
It's like all your buddies, and it's great going to tournaments and just seeing everyone and seeing compete and seeing certain guys. Yeah, it's really, I get a real kick out of seeing like the guys that have really been dedicated and seeing them get better and better and better and seeing them get the results. Like we had a guy in our club, or 2 guys in our club get national titles, and they've been putting so much hard work, and see them kind of victorious. It just feels great.
Yeah.
To kind of like and see people kind of see pullers have been around for like 3 or 4 years and see like the evolution of them in terms of like technique. Everyone compared to like the first nationals we had in 2011, 2012, the ones we have now, just the standards getting better, the competition's getting more exciting, and just every aspect. But I guess it's
You guys are going to probably progress faster in many ways than other countries because you are so unified. The work you've put into it is going to, I think it'll be easier for you to progress than, say, for us here in the States. So many people email us and, when's the next tournament? You're like, well, so-and-so's running one in May, and then there's one down in Rhode Island, but all the weight classes are different, and, the different rules, and they use different straps, and this is different and that's different. But when you have, this is what we do, it's going to be the same wherever you go.
Right.
These are our teams. You can train with these guys in this place, these guys. It's very unified, and that's how you grow a sport. Because it's a simple thing to explain.
What I found was that the Australians, the teamwork aspect really appeals to a lot of us. So I found at the first Worlds, there was a heap of us that were there, and we really stood out as a team. A lot of times other countries seem to be very individualised. That team aspect means that we're all trying to help each other. We'll all get on the practice table and try and learn things off the overseas pullers, and then we get back as a group and share it. What we found probably a few years ago, that everyone was looking at, how do I get the edge? But we're looking at internationally now, and it's not how I get the edge against, someone from Victoria or Queensland.
Yeah.
It's how are we competitive internationally. So that's the big thing I found. Even with the American team over there, I just thought that the Australians, the way we stick together and try and help each other and cheer for each other, it's a real group aspect. And that's what I think we'll bring to the WAL when we get there, that real team-based environment. I was at the finals last year, and people have a small sort of support group, but I find the Australians, we all band together. Whenever we're together, you're 100% behind whoever's pulling at the time. And I found that, a little bit lacking sometimes as Worlds. A lot of guys were left on their own. They'd walk off after a great win. There'd be no one there.
Yeah.
It was a weird sort of thing for us to understand anyway.
Well, it's an interesting point. I do think that you have somewhat of a unique culture in Australia. I've mentioned this to Ryan and Jordan when we talked to them a few months ago, is that if you look at countries and how they do in the Summer Olympics in particular, you guys are always right up at the top of the medal count, even though your population is comparatively small. 18 million now compared to 300 plus million in Russia and the United States, 100, and then obviously China and India both having over 1 billion people. Considering the number of people you have a very high percentage of serious athletes in a large number of sports, which is, I think obviously there's some kind of physical component to that, but I do think that you take sports very seriously there in a different way from a number of other countries.
I think it's very much a cultural thing. Australians place a very high importance. If you have a look at some other countries, education or the arts and various things, Australia places a very high importance on sport. It's sort of that national, you're brought up with it. It's not something you choose. It's all around you the whole time. And Duan coming from a different country, I think living in the UK, as I have done, it's a really different lifestyle too in Australia. It's a more active lifestyle, but we place a lot more emphasis on that.
All right. I got a good one for you now, man. Jamie Sheldon is online finally because he's posting about this stuff every day. This is a little bit of a long question, but
boy.
All right, first of all, there's a slight complaint because it's taken people over a month to log their states results, and that pushes the recording of updates further into the future, which poses a problem in April after the third major WAL event because the rankings will not be accurate. And the top 4 to 12 guys will still be... Anyway, he's basically saying that it's not working the way it's designed to work yet, and how does this last-minute waiting to hear where I stand issue get resolved is the ending question.
Okay, so I'm not sure I can fully answer that. So I'm not involved in entering the data. So there's other individuals involved that are actually entering all this tournament data.
Right.
And so I can see it all kind of coming into the system. I can see some tournaments that haven't been submitted, but they're in the system. So I guess I'm assuming eventually, they'll just get submitted, and as soon as a tournament gets submitted, everything updates. And if like an old tournament gets submitted, the tournaments after it, the ratings get recalculated because there might be someone competed there that competed with someone later, so everything will work itself out when things are submitted.
So his point is that because they have to book flights to Chicago and that sort of thing.
Oh, I see. Right.
Making sure that the information is updated so that they can they don't have to buy like a last minute flight, that kind of thing.
Oh, look, that's a good question, but I'm not the one that can answer that. That'd be the people that actually, maybe Ben from WoW would be a better one to ask about that specifically.
All right, fair enough.
With the system though, if WAL was running the brackets out of it, you would get a live feed and an automatic update. So it depends on the tournament directors as well, whether they're willing to use the paper or use the system brackets. If you use the system brackets, it's updated immediately. But that's
everybody should.
Getting people.
Yeah.
So I think
people
I think that's like the aspiration down the track is that this system will be used, for actual live events.
Yeah.
But still, it's very much kind of being rolled out. You have to kind of as certain individuals that you got to train people up to kind of use it, and it's just at the moment it's more hassle than it's worth right now. But I think ultimately, because then as soon as event happens, instant updates, which is what we want. It's nice that people's expectations now that this is here are getting higher. It's like, well, this is here. Why aren't the results instant? Because that's what it should be. In this modern day and age of technology, we shouldn't have to wait like a month or two for results to come out. So it's I feel like whilst sometimes get some criticism, I think that's a very exciting thing, a very good thing.
Yeah.
That we're raising the standard of this conversation about what our expectations are in terms of what we expect to get out from arm wrestling results.
I think you have a pretty good attitude about it, considering you're not being paid money to do this, taking all these different criticisms to heart and say, oh, that's a good idea. Let me see if I can figure that out. Because you're performing a service at the end of the day by coming up with a system that's going to accurately rank people that we didn't have before. So, I just think it's great you're doing it. And even though people have complaints here and there, and I think that, obviously you can see from the Australian pullers that they're very fond of the systems.
And look, you got to have a bit of a thick skin with this kind of stuff anyway. But look, I actually genuinely like criticism because that's the only way you're gonna get something improved. If someone just comes along and goes, "Oh, this is shit," then it's like, okay, why do you think it's shit? If they just say, "Oh, it's shit because it's shit," then it's like, well, I don't care what you think. But if they say, "Oh, because it's shit because of this and this," like, okay, well, I'll address that. I'll either explain why it is that way, or why it has to be that way. Or if I can't explain that, then I'll be like, okay, now I'm going to think about that. Let's see if we can improve it. So we really value all feedback. It's good, bad, whatever. It doesn't matter because it's required to get the system better. And that's the goal, to get the system really, really, really good, that everyone respects and likes. And that doesn't happen with that feedback. So
yeah, and it's important too that you seem to have the attitude of you're not going to run. You don't know all the problems right off the bat. You're going to run into problems.
No.
And that feedback has to come back to find those problems. We're kind of the people who are going to test drive this whole thing. So I think it's great. Yeah,
absolutely. Because it's the thing. We test drive it now. We kind of get rid of all the kinks over the next year or two, and then like 5 years time, when it's like running smoothly and it's just a standard. Then it's like everyone will forget about this time, and everyone will be like, "Yeah, this is what it is. This is what you got to do to get ranked. You got to work your ass off. To get number one ranking doesn't happen with one tournament. Doesn't happen with two tournaments.
Yeah.
It happens with a bunch of tournaments. It is like a hard slog to get your rating up, as it should be. You have to earn it, and that's what it's got to in Australia. People come into it and they have to earn that high rate ranking if they want to get there. It's not given to you. Or from one tournament.
Yeah,
you still get. Yeah.
I always felt it interesting that arm wrestlers were more than happy to dedicate 10 years to training and stuff to be pretty good.
Yeah.
But they're not willing to wait a year for this thing to work itself out. So it's
exactly.
It's funny where we put our patience in.
No, that's it, and there's a certain individuals like Ryan Bowen, Jesse Johnston. They put in some really hard yards, knuckle down, and you can see that Jesse Johnston in 2013 had a great year. And that's what people need to do. That's the level of effort required. You can't just have a couple of tournaments and think you're hot shit. You just got to, like with any.
We had this exact same conversation last night after training. Simon, one of our pullers, he won nationals, and then he said my rankings only moved X, Y, and Z points, and I'm still behind the guys that I just beat. The explanation is it's a one-off tournament. You're looking at the history.
Yeah.
Rather than just cherry picking. A bit like Wimbledon, Blues used the example before. Goran Ivanovic came in and won as a wild card. But the body of work before that People have got to look at the body of work, and once you establish more of a body of work, the accuracy just comes, and then you don't have the same issues that are coming up now.
Gotcha.
And your intuition and the expectations will start lining up a lot more the more matches you actually get.
Yeah.
And that's that thing as well. Like rankings always lag reality, and they only update if people have matches. So it's it takes time for things to kind of change.
Yeah, for sure. And if you're, I mean, I understand why people are getting that way a little bit with the WAL, just because if you don't get a certain placing, you have to do more work in order to get to where you need to go. Fair enough.
Yeah.
But again, that's a pretty, it's 1 year. We don't know what's going to be next year. And, I think, like I was kind of saying before, anything that makes me, if I want to, say I'm a wild card somewhere, I do some crazy thing, my ranking doesn't move that much. All I want to do is prove to every motherfucker out there that I'm actually that guy. So I'll have no problem going out and keep proving it. So anything that kind of makes people think that way a little bit, I'm a real big fan of in the sport right now.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Mm-hmm. So Ryan's asked a question a couple times, and I'm going to get in for him. And that is, what thoughts do you have? Yeah, what thoughts do you have on separate ratings for each weight class to stop undefeated lightweights artificially surpassing heavier guys?
Well, I didn't really want to mention, but that's basically the big change that is coming, that I've been working really, really hard on the past few weeks. So at the moment there's like a single rating to kind of rule them all, single rating regardless. Because I kind of had this again, this dream, of you have this one rating per individual, and so then in a way you can have this system where you didn't actually have to have weight classes. You have rating brackets, where someone's between 1,100 and 1,200 points there. And so the weight is kind of irrelevant. Yeah, we only have weight brackets because strong guys typically are stronger than lighter guys, and you're trying to kind of get fairer competition. But having an accurate rating system, that also tells you the group of guys that are close together that should be battling out in the class. So I kind of had this hope that maybe, with a single rating per individual, you could have this system where you just get matches up by their rating. But we do have weight classes, and we have individuals that change their weight, do crazy weight drops or weight gains, which skews things as well.
Sure.
And for example, to take chess as an example, they have different ratings for different formats of games. So the classical chess, they have their rating, but they have blitz and speed chess ratings. And I've kind of come to the conclusion that I think that's kind of necessary, and also in arm wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So I part of the reason I didn't want to do it again was because, none of us have that many matches per year. Some of us don't have that many matches per year. And if you only have, say, 10 matches per year, and you did it over 2 or 3 weight classes, then, you've diluted, your rating and your ranking. But I think ultimately what we do need is a kind of, I'm kind of running some parallel at the moment, seeing how it's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Having separate rating brackets, so 165 rating, 195 rating, 225 rating, 22 plus rating. And so, someone like Todd Hutchins, he would have his 195 rating, but he'd also have his 225 rating. And they're essentially 2 different people in the ranking system.
Gotcha.
I see.
And so that's kind of, it's very close to kind of rolling this out, probably in the next kind of week or 2. And then it's going to get these see how this goes.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of where basically where it's heading. So I don't know, what your thoughts on that would be.
I think that's exactly the right way to do it, because you're right. It is. I mean, I like the idea of them having basically 2 different individuals, because I like your comparison of 2 different styles, like blitz chess versus regular chess, in the sense that you can't possibly compete at both of them at the same time. So it's fair to count them as completely separate entities. And it makes sense because, it's a massive difference in weight, and what you are in 195 is not what you are.
Exactly. Like a 225 Todd Hutchins is probably a lot stronger than a 195 Todd Hutchins, despite his awesome weight cuts.
Uh-huh.
Right.
You know what I mean? So really they're kind of almost like 2 different pullers with different abilities, in which case they kind of need 2 different ratings. The one downside to this is you kind of do lock yourself into the weight classes you set up initially. Yeah. And I mean, you can change them, but it's not ideal, So that's one downside to it. And some things makes it more complicated. Some things makes it a bit easier. But that's one big change that's coming that we're going to experiment with and see if that. And that will address a lot of issues with guys like jumping up and down with weights to try and.
I think that's a good first draft idea, at least. Get it out there, try it, see what happens.
Yeah. And the only reason it's possible to try that is because I know I've broken record. We have this data that we can go right. Let's just try a whole different system.
Mm-hmm.
And this to me is really exciting that we're in this phase where we can experiment with all these different systems.
Right.
And
finally,
go,
right?
Which one works best?
Finally got this data.
One.
Right.
This one, finally got the data. So I'm really big on just that is the most awesome thing about this whole system. The data is being recorded. All this other cool stuff can happen.
He is an IT guy. At the end of the day, I need my data. You want my data?
Give me my data.
Well, listen, guys, this has been a total blast. I learned a lot, and I'd love to have you guys on again sometime soon. I'm gonna end up hanging up on you because I'm gonna start coughing like an animal any minute. Well, seriously, I learned a lot. You guys are a lot of fun, man. We should do this again sometime soon.
Yeah, I'd love to. Hopefully,
guys.
It makes more sense now, and
makes a lot more sense to me. I don't know about Jamie. I'll see what he says, but I definitely have a much better understanding of it now. I appreciate that.
Look, if Jamie wants to contact me, just contact me on Facebook. I'm happy to talk to him and explain any questions he has, because I know that he's had a lot of thoughts about it. So if I can, I know he's chatted to Ben for a while. So, but if he wants to chat to me, then I'd love to chat to him, because it's for people like Jamie questioning it that it gets better.
Yep.
So
Nice, guys. Well, thanks again for coming on. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, a pleasure, man.
Next time,
thanks, guys.
All right, guys. Adios.
Peace.
See ya.